Welcome students. Today we are going to talk and we are going to discuss about the UPSC daily answer writing test, polity test number 10. Okay, here there are 10 questions that we are going to discuss, and here we will see what kind of questions are there and how to decode the questions and what are the expectations are there when you are writing the answers. Okay, in the model answer all the detailed things has been given, but despite going into the detail of all the things which are given here, we will discuss the main thing, that what is the expectation from the examiner about writing the answer regarding to these questions. So let's discuss question one by one. Okay, let's understand the question, let's understand the demand of the question. The first question here is asking about what are the main sources and influencing factor in making of the Constitution of India. How does it reflect the diversity and unity of Indian democracy? So it is asking basically the two things. First, it is asking the sources that influence the making of the Constitution of India. First, and the second thing is, how does it reflect the diversity and unity of India? All these different things which affected the Constitution, how it affects the diversity and unity. So you have to show the factors, or you have to mention the factors in the Indian Constitution which promote the diversity and unity of Indian democracy. So of course, in introduction you will write some basic things about Indian Constitution, like it is adopted in the 26 November 1949, enforced on 26 January 1950, and it is a dynamic legal document that embodies national, social, cultural and political heritage. Okay, so here the main question is, what are the different sources that influences the Indian Constitution? Which are the different sources which influence the Indian Constitution? In the features of the Indian Constitution chapter, you already know these sources. Which are the sources? Government of India Act. This also affected or influenced Indian Constitution with several things like federal scheme, emergency provision, bicameral legislation. Then second factor is the British Constitution. It has a huge impact on Indian Constitution, particularly with respect to the parliamentary democracy, cabinet system. Then US Constitution also affected the Indian Constitution, like that of fundamental rights, independent judiciary and impeachment of the president. Okay, such like there are so many different sources here there. Next, Irish Constitution, directive principle of the state policy, we have taken it from the Irish Constitution. Then Canadian and Australian Constitution, here we have from the Canadian Constitution we have taken the federation with the strong center. From the Australian Constitution we have taken this concurrent list and the joint sitting things. French and Japanese Constitution, this is also a source of Indian Constitution, from where we have taken liberty, equality, fraternity and procedure established by law. And South African Constitution, from this constitution we have taken amendment procedure and Rajya Sabha election. Not just this much only, there are many other sources also. Okay, but in exam you can just write 4 to 5 sources and that much is enough. Okay, then how does all this factor reflects the diversity? That is important thing, how it reflects the diversity. Remember here, 8th schedule of the Indian Constitution, it has a 22 languages, official languages, 22 official languages. Of course, it reflects the diversity that Indian Constitution has. Then Article 29 and 30 of the Indian Constitution, it is about safeguarding the cultural and the educational rights of the minorities. Then 5th and 6th schedule, it is about protecting the interest of the tribal region. The personal laws for the different communities preserve the religious traditions. Then Article 51A of Indian Constitution, with respect to the fundamental duties, it asks for preserving the nation's composite culture. See how it is protecting the diversity as per asked in the question. Then reserved seats for the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes in the legislature, that also reflects the diversity. Then despite diversity, unity is upheld through. There are different provisions to ensure the unity. Article 1 of Indian Constitution defined as a union of state, that also reflects the unity. Second, the single citizenship, that also reflects the unity. We don't have a dual citizenship, we also have a single citizenship. Then preamble of the Constitution, it has sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic and republican principle. The preamble also has this unity and integrity principle that reflects the unity. Then directive principle of the state policy, it talks about social and economic justice. Then integrated judiciary, that also ensures the uniformity application of law. All these provisions says the importance of unity in the Indian Constitution. So here in this question, basically these 3 things has been asked. First thing, the sources of Indian Constitution. Second thing, it asked about which are the provisions which talks about the diversity. Then which are the provisions which talks about the unity. Okay, all these things that you have to write in this particular question, and then of course you will write about the conclusion that Indian Constitution is a living document. Okay, it reflects the unmatched diversity and the resilient unity in the Indian society. Okay, so introduction, conclusion, around 3 to 4 lines, and the main body part where you are writing what is exactly in the question has been asked. Second question, what it talks about, it says that while adopting the provisions from the various global constitution, in what way the Constitution of India preserves its unique identity. So it says that, okay, we have taken multiple things from the various constitution that you have to write. Even in the first question, we have given the sources. Here also, you have to give the sources of the constitution of the different countries. There you are writing, okay, कौन सी देश से हमने क्या चीज ली है. Then after that we are talking about in what ways does Constitution of India preserve this unique identity. कि though we have taken these things from the outside, बाहर से इतनी सारी चीजें ली है, फिर भी Constitution of India की यूनिक आइडेंटिटी आज भी प्रिजर्व है. आइडेंटिटी आज भी है. ओके, ये नहीं है कि हमने बाहर से लिया तो हमारी आइडेंटिटी खत्म हो गई. नहीं, there are some provisions in the Indian Constitution which are unique to India. यही बताना है यहाँ पे. Okay, so first we will address the first part, adopting the provisions from the different constitutions. So here there are different provisions are there. We have taken from the different constitution. Okay, like that we have taken it from the Canada, like that we have taken it from the United States, we have taken it from the Ireland. All these things we have seen, like directive principle from Ireland, concurrent list from Australia, fundamental right judicial review from the United States. Like that you are writing, okay, we have taken different provisions from the different constitution. Okay, but that doesn't mean we don't have our unique identity. We are, of course, have our unique identity. So how that can be said, which provisions in Indian constitution reflect that we have our unique identity? For example, the length and the detail. We have around 450 articles we have around 12 schedules, a lengthiest constitutions in the world. And because of it is a lengthiest constitution in the world, it is something unique that India has. No other constitution has this. Okay, the detailing we have in the Indian constitution, no other constitution has that much detailing, the uniqueness. Then blend of rigidity and the flexibility. While if you take the example of the British constitution, it is flexible. If you take the example of the American constitution, it is completely rigid. We are the blend of rigidity and the flexibility, something unique we have. Then there are unique features like directive principle of the state policy. Okay, there are socialist principle, Gandhian principle, liberal intellectual principle, directive principle, something unique we have. Fundamental duties, we have added with the 42nd constitutional amendments. There are multiple provisions there that you have to respect the constitutional ideals. You have to respect the ideals which are promoted by the freedom fighters. Okay, all these things has been given here. You have to respect the national flag. You have to respect the women. You have to respect the composite culture. All these unique things are there in the fundamental duties. So there are multiple things in Indian constitution that shows our unique identity. That shows that we have not copied anything. Though even we have taken things from the outside, we have kept our own identity there. Okay. Then the next question is about enumerating the provisions through which Indian constitution addresses the issue of secularism and religious freedom. So it is asking the provisions in Indian constitution which talks about secularism and the religious freedom. Then it also says that how is the Indian approach to secularism distinct from the Western concept. So first you talk about Indian constitution, where it is secularism is where or religious freedom is where. Then you will talk about the differences between the Western secularism and Indian secularism. Okay, there are two things has specifically asked there. So first we will talk about what are the different constitutional provisions. We talks about secularism and the religious freedom. Here in the preamble we talks about sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic country. See, secular word is only used here only in the preamble of Indian constitution, the first page of Indian constitution. Article 14 also talks about right to equality. We are not discriminating any person, neither the religious discrimination. Then Article 15 is there. It prohibits the discrimination on the grounds of religion, race, caste, sex and the place of birth. So it also talks about not discriminating any person based on the religion also. Okay, so religious freedom and the secularism we are following. Then we know that Article 25, 26, 27 and 28, all those 4 articles are the articles for the religious freedom in the fundamental rights. We are already aware of that. Article 44 of the Indian Constitution talks about uniform civil code. that shows the secular structure of Indian constitution. Then there is a fundamental duties. It also talks about asking the citizen to promote the harmony and the spirit of common brotherhood. All these articles shows that Indian constitution talks about religious freedom. Okay, it also talks about the religious tolerance. Okay, then it talks about next thing here, it is talking about the secularism. Secularism is given in the fundamental rights also. It is given into the directive principle of state policy also. Those are the provisions we already seen above. Then it is asking about the differences between the Indian secularism and the Western secularism. That also you should be aware of the differences. Let's see the differences. First is state religion relations. In Indian secularism, state treats all the religions with the equal respect. But in the Western countries, there is a strict separation between the church and the state. India, people have a religious freedom. Okay, in the public places also they have the religious freedom. But in the Western countries, it is mostly confined to the private domain. In the Western countries, in the public places, you don't have that much religious freedom. It can be considered only as a private affair. That is also the difference. Then regulation. In India, state can intervene in a religious matter to protect the fundamental rights. Western countries, state cannot interfere in the religious matter. Then positive secularism. It recognizes and celebrates the religious diversity. But in the Western countries, it works on protecting individuals from religious influences in the governments. We celebrate it. And they try to restrict it. For example, state subsidies for pilgrims like Hajj subsidy. Okay, like say festivals. Also state promotes festivals. But in the Western countries, no state-sponsored religious events or the subsidies has been given. Okay. So that is the difference between Indian secularism and the Western secularism. Next question, it focuses on examining the features of Indian constitution that render it living and the dynamic document. How does these features equip it to address contemporary socio-political challenges? So what it says that what are the different features of the Indian constitution which makes it a living and the dynamic document? So here you have to write the constitutional features, constitutional provisions which make it as a living and a dynamic document. Second, it is asking about the features equipped to address the contemporary socio-political challenges. So many challenges we are facing currently. Which are the provisions in the Indian constitution, or which are the features of the Indian constitution which focuses on addressing these challenges? So two aspects has been asked here. So always remember, whatever is asked in the questions, you are writing only that. Don't write which is not asked in the questions. Okay. So here the first thing, that is the features that make Indian constitution as a living and a dynamic document. Let's talk about the feature first. Blend of rigidity and the flexibility. That means if there is a change in society, there can be the change in Indian constitution based on the needs, because there is a flexibility also. Okay, so that makes it as a living document. Then comprehensive and detailed. That makes it dynamic. We have given all the things in a comprehensive matter, like directive principles are there, emergency provisions are also there, governance structure, rights, everything is there. That makes it living and a dynamic document. Then there is a fundamental rights and the fundamental duties. It also makes it dynamic. It protects the freedom of the people. It incorporates the duties of the people. That makes it dynamic. Then it also makes it living, because these fundamental duties are added later as per the need. When you consider something as a living, means something is upbringing, modernizing. And Indian constitution is continuously getting increased, continuously getting upgraded, continuously getting modernized. That is why it is called as living document. With several amendments, we are keeping it alive. We are not keeping it dead. Okay, that is the meaning of the living document. Directive principle of a state policy. The non-justiciable but guide state policy for the social justice and the welfare. DPSP, directive principle of state policy. Okay, then free and compulsory education. For example, right to freedom, right to education act. See how it becomes a living document. Whatever there was in a Indian constitution in 1950, in 2009 we adopted as a right to education act. It made as a living document, a relevant document in today's times also. Okay. Then judicial review. It makes Indian constitution dynamic. If there is something unconstitutional, still same provisions has been used by the judiciary to use it. Living document, it has made it. Okay. Then there are amendment procedure. Okay. It keeps the constitution changing. So all these things are there which makes it as a living and dynamic document. This is very, very important. How these features help in addressing the contemporary challenges? That is the next question. For example, if there is a social inequality challenges, how we deal it? Reservation policy. Environmental issue, judicial activism we have. Okay. Then gender justice, there are different courts ruling. For example, triple talaq, Sabrimala judgment of the Supreme Court. So we are using the constitutional provisions to deal with the social challenges. Terrorism and security, emergency provisions are there. Article 350 to 360. Federal tensions, cooperative federalism, GST Council, we are promoting this. GST Council, Article 104, it is the 101st constitutional amendment. The GST is added there. Okay. Then technological advances, judicial ruling on digital privacy, Puttaswamy judgment 2017 with respect to Article 21. It shows that Indian constitution is so much relevant in dealing with the social challenges, and that is asked. So here you are writing the social challenges and just you are writing which are the constitutional provisions which are dealing with the social challenges. Okay. Then next here, it is about the Indian Union is primarily a unitary system with some federal characteristics rather than a truly federal state with the limited unitary features. What is it asking actually in this context? Enumerate and explain the unitary and the federal features of Indian constitution. So in this particular question, two things has been asked. What are the different federal features in the Indian constitution? What are the different unitary features of the Indian constitution? Two things are specifically asked, and you have to write these two things. Okay. So let's talk about these two things which are asked in the question. First, it is talking about the federal features. What are the different federal features of the Indian constitution? Like for example, there is a dual polity. There is a central government, there is a state government, dual polity. That is the features of federal structure. Division of a power between central government and the state government as given in the 7th schedule of Indian constitution. Then written constitution and the supreme constitution, that is also the features of the Indian federalism. Then independent judiciary is also the features of federalism. Then bicameralism, having two houses, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, this is also the features of federalism. Then rigid amendment procedure, okay, that is also shows the federalism. That is also the features of the federalism. So we have all the features of the federalism, but we cannot call it as a complete federal structure because there are multiple unitary features in Indian constitution. So what are the unitary features we have? Strong center, the center is more powerful. Single constitution we have. Okay. Then single citizenship, emergency provisions, appointment of the governors, all these provisions shows that there are more powers with the central government. And that is why we call Indian constitution as quasi-federal. We call it as a quasi-federal. We are not completely federal, we are quasi-federal. Because there is a federalism, but of course there are unitary features regarding this. Okay. So that makes Indian federalism as a half federal or a quasi-federal state. Then the next question is asking about the salient features of Indian constitution and explain the unique characteristics that make it exceptional and distinct from other constitutions of the world. So it's saying, okay, let's talk about the features and also give some unique characteristics which are different from the world, which makes it unique. Okay. So let's talk about two things has been asked here. See, whenever you read the question, you just first have to identify which things are specifically asked. Once you know what is asked, you will know what headings to make and what to write. Okay. So here, first thing it is asking the salient features of the Indian constitution. In some previous questions also we have discussed it, like having a lengthiest constitution in the world. There is a blend of rigidity and the flexibility, federal system with unitary bias. Just in a previous question we discussed it. Okay, parliamentary form of government, fundamental rights, directive principle, fundamental duties, all these, of course you know these things. You have studied all these things. So you know these are all the features of the Indian constitution. This is very, very easy to write the features of the Indian constitution. Okay, but here it is important to write about What makes it distinctive and exceptional? Which features are there which are distinctive and exceptional, which makes Indian constitution separate from the other constitution? Let's know about it. First, lengthiest constitution. See, no other constitution in the world is that much lengthiest as the Indians. Lengthiest is it. Why it is distinct? It balances India's diversity, complexity, and the federal needs in that our Indian constitution. Borrowed but indigenous. We have borrowed from multiple things, but this is indigenous. For example, we have taken fundamental rights from the USA, from the Bill of Rights, but still the right to untouchability. This what called the abolition of untouchability in the right to equality. Okay, abolition of untouchability, Article 17 is there. That is a problematic thing, and that we have added in Indian Constitution. Okay, that we want to abolish the untouchability that we have. This is not there in the USA Constitution. This is only in the Indian Constitution. Religious rights in Indian Constitution. So, despite borrowed so many things, there is something unique that we have. Okay, then amenability with the stability, balances rigidity and the flexibility. This is something unique. Only we have, Indian Constitution have. Positive secularism, we have discussed the Western secularism, Indian secularism. Indian secularism is something positive. We don't restrict, we promote things. Only things are restricted which are harmful for fundamental rights. Okay, direct to principle and fundamental duties has the provisions which you cannot find it anywhere in the world. Basic structure of the Constitution, Keshwan and the Bharati Judgment 1973. It is Indian innovation. No other judiciary all over the world has given the basic structures. So these are the provisions that makes Indian Constitution as unique and different from the other countries. Very easy questions. Write down the features, how it makes the unique. Very simple questions. Next question is about explain how the Indian Constitution incorporates a system of checks and balance to maintain the principle of separation of power. In this context, analyze the contribution of judicial activism in protecting the constitutional arrangement in India. Understood here what is asked? It's saying that, okay, how Indian Constitution incorporates checks and balance between judiciary, executive and legislature. The checks and balance between them. And analyze the contribution of judicial activism in protecting the constitutional arrangement, this separation of a power, how judicial activism helps in it. So let's talk about that. Okay, so there are three organs we know where there should be a separation of a power: legislature, executive and the judiciary. Then the provisions of the Constitution which talks about the checks and balance between all these three organs. Article 50 says that, okay, separation between the judiciary and the executive. Then Article 13 here, it says that any law which is inconsistent with the fundamental right will be declared as a void. Who declared as a void? The Supreme Court. Article 32 and the 226. These are empowering the courts to issue the writs against the state action if they are violating the fundamental rights. Article 124 and 207, process of appointment and the removal of the judges, balancing the independence and the accountability of the judges. The judges are appointed by the president. Okay, so there is a strict separation of a power, we can say that. Okay, the role of judiciary in upholding the separation of a power. For example, judicial review. So many times because of the judicial review, unconstitutional amendments has been struck down. Okay, then public interest litigation, it enables citizens to directly approach to the courts to enforce their rights. It keeps the government and the legislatures accountable. Protection of the fundamental rights, judiciary plays very important role in protection of the fundamental rights. Okay, under Article 32 and Article 226. Accountability of the executive and the legislature has been ensured by the judiciary through various judgments. Okay, for example, that electoral bond judgment, we know it. Okay, balanced governance, cases like S.R. Bommai versus Union of India. It restricted the misuse of the precedent rule. Okay, so judiciary has very good role in ensuring these organs are working well. Okay, then but there are cautions here. The judicial review can also become a judicial overreach also. It becomes a judicial overreach. Of course, it is encroaching into the powers of the legislatures and the executives then. And that becomes problematic. Okay, so that is why this judicial review, there should be self-restrained by the Supreme Court itself with respect to the judicial review. Okay, or judicial activism. Then next one, distinguish between the concept of equality before law and equal protection of the law as per provided under Article 14 of the Indian Constitution. Equality before law and equal protection of the law. Additionally, explain the constitutional exceptions to the right to equality. Equality before law क्या होता है, equal protection of law क्या होता है. Then explain the constitutional exceptions to right to equality. What are the constitutional exceptions क्या होते हैं ये बताना है. So here first you have to give the difference here. Equality before law and equal protection of law, that difference has been given here. Okay. For example, equality before law has taken from the British Constitution. Equal protection of law we have taken it from the American Constitution. What is the meaning of equality before law? No person is above the law, everyone is equal in the eyes of law. What is equal protection of the law? Equal treatment of individuals in the similar circumstances, that is the equal protection of the laws. Nature, negative concept, prohibits special privileges. Okay, it prohibits the special privileges, but equal protection of the law, it permits reasonable classification for equity. That means if you want to protect, if you want to promote the vulnerable section, then there can be some extra rights can be given to them. So it's promoted. It's a positive concept. The scope provides gender equality, general equality, and here it allows differential treatment for the legitimate objective. So different people can be treated differently according to that. Similar people can be treated similarly. Different people can be treated differently. If one is poor, one is rich, then the poor person should be treated differently. This equal protection of law allows it. Okay, so that is why these two dimensions are important under Article 14, equality before law and equal protections of law. What are the different exceptions has been given with respect to this Article 14? What are these exceptions? Like president and the governor has given so much of immunity. That is the important thing. Second, for the foreign sovereigns and the diplomats, they cannot be arrested in India under the Vienna Convention. Special laws for the certain groups. For example, scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, OBCs under Article 14 and Article 16, they have been given special privileges for their welfare. Reasonable classification. Laws can treat different groups differently. For example, classification is based on intelligence differentia. Okay, so reasonable classification can be different according to the law. So poor people has been given more benefits. Okay, then protective discrimination schemes like free education for girls, welfare benefits for the minorities, these are actually required. That is why these are exceptions. You cannot say that okay, these girls has been given something special, these minorities has been given something special, so this goes against equality. This is allowed. Why? Because these are vulnerable sections of the society. For them the exceptions are allowed. And this is asked in the question like, what are the different exceptions to this? The right to equality. Then next question is discuss the key similarities and the differences between the Constitution of India and the United States of the America. Support your answer with a suitable example. Here the differences has been asked. Even though the differences has been asked, you can use some example of the similarity also. Because Indian Constitution and the USA Constitution has some similarity, but of course they have the differences also. Let's discuss about both these things, but the main thing is here. The main thing is the difference between the Indian Constitution and the American Constitution. So let's talk about that. First, here the similarity has been given between the Indian Constitutions and the American Constitution. Like both the constitutions are the written constitutions. Then there is a separation of a power between legislature, executive and the judiciary in America and India also. Then fundamental rights are there in American Constitution and Indian Constitution. In American Constitution, it is called as the Bill of Rights. There is a provisions for judicial reviews in both the constitutions. Then federal structure is there in America also, in India also. There is a division of power between center and the state government and the both countries. Supremacy of the constitution is there in America also, India also, because both countries have their own written constitution and the constitution is supreme. No other person is supreme to the constitution in America and India. So of course there are similarity, but there are multiple differences also. For example, with respect to length, Indian constitution is the lengthiest one. And American constitution is the shortest modern written constitution. Amendment process, India is a it's a mix of flexibility and the rigidity. But with respect to USA, it is highly rigid. Okay. Then system of government, it is a parliamentary democratic system in India. With America, it is the presidential system. President is more powerful here. Then single or dual citizenship in India, there is a single citizenship. The states do not have the citizenship here. But in USA, there is a dual citizenship. It is a federal state. The central government, there is, you are the citizen of America also, and you are the citizen of the state also. We don't have something like that. Emergency provisions detailed in India, Article 350 to 360. There are no similar provisions in the USA Constitution like the emergency provisions in India. Judicial appointments in India, these are by executives with the consultation of the judiciary. There in America, it is the president who nominates, but it has to be approved by Senate. Directive principles. We have the directive principles. These are socio-economic goals. In American Constitution, there is no equivalent provision as that of a directive principle of a state policy. Okay. Then, next, question number 10, the last question. What it is asking about? See, it's saying that critically assess the significance of the fundamental duties. The question is about the fundamental duties. Asking to assess the fundamental duties incorporated by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act, discuss the contemporary relevance. So two things are specifically asked here. One, the question is asking about the significance of the fundamental duties. Second, it is asking about the contemporary relevance of the fundamental duties. So two things are specifically asked here. So we are going to write about both the things here. So first, importance or the significance of the fundamental duties. Of course, it is important for promoting the responsible citizens, because there are duties are now citizens has the duties, so it makes the citizens responsible. Strengthen national unity, because it asks about promoting the harmony. Okay, then protect national heritage and the environment. Article 48A of the Constitution talks about protection of the environment. Then, Article 51A talks about protection of the environment. It is giving duty to the citizen for protection of environment. Aid in enforcement of the laws. Okay, because so many there provisions has been given in the fundamental duties, so it helps the government to make laws on it, enforce laws on it. Facilitate democratic governance, because it promotes discipline, respect for institution, the tolerance behavior, because it talks about promoting the fraternity. Support judiciary, courts whenever it is needed, it can refer the fundamental duties while interpreting laws and rights. So that is why these fundamental duties are very, very significant. Okay, but here of course they have the relevance in a contemporary India also, because that is asked in this question particularly. Not just significance, the relevance. See here, social challenges. These fundamental duties are helpful in dealing with the social challenges like rising intolerance, communal disharmony, environmental degradation, because they ask to promote fraternity, they ask to promote unity, integrity, they ask to deal with the environmental challenges, ask the people to protect the forest. Okay, then democratic maturity, that is the relevance the fundamental duties have. It responsibilities like respecting the institutions, the constitution, that leads to democratic maturity of the people. Environmental protection, we have already discussed it. It encourages the citizens' participation in ecological conservation. That is currently needed because government is so much focusing on presently in environmental protection. Social justice and equality, because it talks about upholding the dignity of women. It talks about rejecting the practices of a dowry and encouraging education aligned with social reforms goal with respect to the women. Okay, so that is why it talks about social justice and equality. Then judicial interpretation in AIM Student Union case and MC Mehta case. These are the cases where courts acknowledge the significance of the duties in strengthening the constitutional morality. See, even Supreme Court says that these are very important in a current times, the fundamental duties for strengthening the constitutional morality. So these things has been asked particularly in this particular question, that okay, tell us the significance and also the relevance. So always remember, any question, in all the 10 questions, whether any question, it is important to first identify what is asked in the question. Particularly in the 10 marker question, two things are asked. You should be able to identify which are these two things. Once you identify the things, it is very easy to write the answer. Okay, because you already know the points. The most of the student actually find the problem in identifying what to write. So you have to read the question well. Understand, okay, what are these two things has been asked in the question. These two things becomes your two headings. And then you write around 5 points under each heading, and you have already written the 10 points, means 10 marker 10 points, you will get the good marks. Okay, so you have to fulfill the demands of the question. In the polity question, you can just write so many articles as you can write, like we have currently discussed. Okay, so here we have discussed one test of polity. There will be the further lectures. In the further lectures, further test we are also going to discuss. Okay, see you in the next lecture. Thank you.